Hey, how's it going, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Do you ride your motorcycle off-road and you're wondering about installing some heavy-duty tubes against the regular tubes of your motorcycle? If that's the case, stick around, that I'll show you some differences that you need to consider before doing this change. Let's get started. On this side I have a heavy-duty 4mm thick tube from Michelin. And on this side I have the regular rear tube that comes stock with the Honda CRF 300L. And the question is, should you simply go and install the heavy duty? At the end of the day it is going to be stronger, or that's at least what you expect to be stronger, so it should be better. But that's not always the case, it is not for everybody. So let's look at some variables so you can make the decision by yourself. The first condition we're going to look at is the weight. So there's a substantial difference in weight. So what I'm going to do now is going to show to you not only for the rear tube but also the front tube, and that's the model that I'm choosing here, but more or less you can consider it's always going to be substantially heavier when you go for a heavy duty tube. So let's take a look. Here's the weight of a regular rear tube, 740 grams. So let's check the weight of the heavy duty rear tube. Comes in at 1.6 kilos. Here's the weight of the regular front tube, 521 grams. Here's the weight of the front heavy-duty tube, 1,298 grams. So as you can see it in there, it is much heavier. And why is this weight important? And you're going to feel that because this is an unsprung weight. In other words, this is a weight that is not supported by the motorcycle suspension system. This would be, for example, your tires, the brake calipers, and this includes also the tube. Generally speaking, you can consider that the lighter the unsprung weight is, this is going to be better for the handling characteristics of the motorcycle. So it's going to be more agile, it's going to be easier to turn. You can just imagine here, if you have a quite heavy tube, or the wheel in the sense, not only the tube but the tire, and this is quite heavy, that's a large mass, is a bigger mass that is spinning, and now when you want to turn the motorcycle, it's going to make it a slower response. And this also affects the suspension. You're going to have a suspension that can react slower when you have more unsprung weight. This additional weight also has a consequence on the heat that's going to be trapped on your tube. So you can imagine if you have a thicker material, more heat can be trapped into it and it's going to be harder to dissipate. What I have here on my hands, this is a used heavy-duty tube that was from installed on my front tire, and I have used this tube for only about 5,000 kilometers. Now, and I can already see that there is some abrasion that has happened in here. So let me show to you, maybe you can even see that on the video. Take a look. Now, so hopefully you can see that. I know it's going to be a bit tricky to picture that exactly on the video, but this section here of the wall, you may be able to see there's kind of some abrasion. There are some dots that appeared in here. Even there's a part of the material that is peeling off, you see here. And if I just rub like that, some of the material actually comes out on my finger. Let me see if I find another one. So here it is, another section. It is nothing major, okay? This tube is perfectly fine. I just want to give an example just to show to you, but it's full of dots. It's like if you had taken a file or sandpaper and just rubbed a little bit in here, and that's what I can see on this section. Hopefully you get this on the video, otherwise just go for my description here. It's like sandpaper or a file had just rubbed too much in here. Your tires are going to heat up more at higher speeds. So if you are planning on taking here a lot of highway kilometers, so you're doing 100, 120, 140 kilometers per hour, you can expect that your tires are going to heat up, and this additional heat is going to be transferred to the tube. And if you have heavy-duty tubes, that's going to increase the wear not only of your tubes but also of your tires. If your tires here, they're softer, let's say like this, so they're softer because they're warmer, and they're warmer because they're trapping more heat because of the heavy-duty tubes, the wear is going to be increased. Why then bother installing heavy-duty tubes? Now there's a misconception there, so let's just clear this out of the way. If you roll over a nail, it doesn't matter if you have heavy-duty tubes or if you have regular tubes. The nail is going to puncture through them no matter what. We are talking at the end of the day about rubber, and a nail is able to go through them. But you will minimize the chance of getting a pinch on your tube. So what is a pinch? Let's talk a little bit about this. Here I just have put my rear regular tube around the rear wheel, and you gotta use a bit of your imagination here because there is no way for me to record this, a pinch flat happening. Especially when you're going off-road and then you're dropping the PSI or the pressure inside your tube or your tires, you're going to now get a tire that's going to deform more to the ground, and that's what gives you better grip, so there's an advantage of doing this. But when you start to run lower pressures inside your tube, now as the tire compresses, also your tube is going to compress and change its shape according to what the tire is doing. And here comes the risk that your tube can flex and get itself in a position where it pinches against the rim of your motorcycle. And that's going to be especially the case when you, for example, have a rock in here. So there's a rock or a sharp edge, and this edge then press against your tire, that then press internally against your tube, and all of this pressure comes to a single contact point where there's a hard part, for instance here the wheel of your motorcycle, and let's use an example, this stone, and that just seems hits hard on your tube at a certain point. So that's what we call a pinch flat in here, and you can imagine that by having a 4 millimeter thick tube wall, that's going to prevent against this kind of flats. Putting all of this information together, here's what I can tell you: just don't go rushing to buy some heavy duty tubes because you heard on the internet that that's the only way to do it. It is not the only way, and it really depends. In fact, it could be a disadvantage. Even if you have a CRF 300L, which is a dual sport, but you're mostly just doing city driving, or you're taking a lot of highway, or in general just tarmac, just asphalted roads, it doesn't make much sense, especially if your PSI, the pressure that you're running, is above 15 or 20 PSI, which is recommended for the CRF 300L. The chance of you getting a pinch flat is extremely low, if not impossible, under these circumstances, and you're going to lose a lot. You're going to have a higher wear of your tire, higher wear of your tubes, and the overall handling of your motorcycle, especially at higher speeds, is going to be worse. The heavy duty tubes is when you're, for example, doing the BDR in the United States or the Trans-Euro Trail here in Europe. But if you're just doing the light, the basic, you're not going that fast, even then you might still be okay. But if you're a more aggressive rider, you're taking some aggressive terrain with a lot of rocks and just sharp edges all over the place, and you need to run a lower PSI, lower pressure inside your tubes, then it's a good idea to consider some heavy duty tubes. And this here now is only my opinion. That's the way I like to do it. That's the logic that I follow. If I had to choose between putting a heavy duty tube first on the rear or on the front, I'm always going to put it on the front first. And the reason is just a much softer tire compared to the rear. And that's what it makes sense to me. I think that the chances of my rear tire getting compressed and I'm getting then a pinch flat is lower on the rear tire, simply because it is a harder carcass, it is a harder tire to compress and go against my tube. So make out of that what you want. You need to put your opinion together, because if we ask 10 different riders, you're going to get 10 different answers about this, but that's the way I like to go about it. If you like this video, you're also going to like the next one that is here on the screen. Bye bye.